Today we're going to create something like a flashcard hub for students in Notion. So what we're going to do is build this flashcard hub from scratch. We're going to have 3 different databases, one for your classes, one for decks, which is used to organize the 3rd database, which is going to be where all of the flashcards are. So let's just get right into it. We're going to make something that looks like this. This is the template in the description below. We have a page directory with 3 different pages for your original databases. So we're working with 3 databases, basically. We have classes, which is connected to decks, and decks, of course, are where your flashcards are. So we're going to connect all 3 of these databases together so they can work together, and that we can then add flashcards, manage flashcards, and visualize flashcards in different ways. So let's open up flashcards here and take a look at how it works. So we have a list in just a simple table view. I feel like this is the best way to visualize flashcards. We have the front of the card, which is the name of the database page, the answer, which is hidden for now, 3 checkboxes for either a poor understanding, an okay understanding, or a great understanding of that flashcard. I also have a status property for either an active card, an archived card, or a card you want to edit. I also have a relation, of course, to the deck this card is related to, the last time you reviewed the card, and based on your understanding, when you should review it next, which is a formula you can customize pretty easily. So if I were to click this checkbox all the way to the left, I'll be able to reveal the answer to this card, come over to my understanding and click either a poor understanding, okay, or great, and you'll notice that the next review date is changing as a result. I can then hide that show box and it will go back to where it was before. I also have other ways to view these cards, like a calendar and other tables. So let's just get right into creating this from scratch. You'll notice inside of the template that there's a link at the bottom called Easy Flashcards Follow Along. Just click through that and we'll get started. So here where it says create new database here, I'm just going to delete this entire line of text. And then I'm going to trigger the block menu with / and find gallery. And we're going to create a database with a gallery view. Down here, I'm going to say new database, and I'm going to name it page directory. And this is where all of the original databases will go. Just going to delete 2 of them. And here next to page directory, I want to hide this. So I'm going to click the menu and hide database title. And then here in gallery view, I'm going to click it and rename it to page directory, just so it looks a little bit neater. So the first page is going to be called classes. Let's open this up as a full page. And I'm going to rename it to classes. I'm going to keep the created property, but I am going to remove tags. And inside of the body of the page, I'm going to insert my classes directory database. So we're going to create another database with / and again, let's create a gallery database to collect all of the classes. Gallery view, again, new database. And let's call it class directory. Delete 2 of them, and let's work with this first page here. And let's say the first class is called morphology, and the second one is called anatomy. So we have our classes, and again, what I can do is go to the menu here next to the title and hide database title. Maybe rename gallery view to directory. So if you look up at the top of the page, you're going to have some breadcrumbs up here. And the link directly next to classes, which is the page I'm in, is its parent page, which is page directory database. So we're going right into the page directory database page as its own page. Now the parent of this is that home page we were on, Easy Flashcards Follow Along, where we have our page directory database with classes. So if you want to quickly navigate its parent page, there is a shortcut for that, and I recommend using it. It's Command-Shift-U. Command Shift U again, and I'm back at the home page. Okay, so let's take a look at this page directory database and design it a little bit. So inside of the original template, I do have cover images, and the way you can easily make cover images is by, if you create a heading 1, or just by selecting hashtag and then space, maybe biology. What I did was just screenshot this text and then just made it my cover image for each page. And I do have the examples that I have here. If I go back to follow along, you'll find it under the media toggle. I have images which you can download. So how I'm able to add those images to each card is if I go into a card, quickly add a new property to this database, and I'm going to call it cover, and I'm going to change the type to files and media, which will allow me to upload an image. So if I click through, I can choose a file and go to my flashcard media folder, classes, and open it up. Now, if I go back to the home page, I can go to my page directory database menu, go to layout, and down here where it says card preview, that's what we're seeing through the card, I can select the files and media property called cover. So if I wanted to look a little bit more minimal without this title here, I can do that by going back, going to properties, and just hiding the name of the card. I can click through to classes and kind of do the same thing with my class directory database. I can design this in a way, so if I click through to morphology, maybe I can replace this default tags property, rename it to cover, and change the type to files and media, and give this a cover image as well, morphology. What you'll also notice, if I want to quickly go to my next class, which is anatomy, I'll just click this down arrow up here. So this is only possible via the preview window that you see here. So if I were to click away, I'm back in my classes page, click back through to morphology, and this will be available to me. Or I can even use a shortcut to flip through pages in this database with Control-Shift-J to go down, and to go up, it's Control-Shift-K. So let's add that cover for anatomy. And again, I'm going to go to the database menu here, layout, and in card preview, the cover, files and media property, and going back right to properties. Again, I'm going to hide the name. So this gives you a little bit of a sleeker look. I can also change the card size, again in layout, and card size small. And I can add a sort here, maybe sort by created time. And that's about all I want to do with this. Let's go back via either the shortcut, Command-Shift-U, or I can go up to the breadcrumbs, and I'm going to create a new page in my page directory called Decks. Now this is how we're going to organize all of the flashcards. Now I'm going to add a cover for Decks, choose Image, Decks, and go down to the body of the page and make my Decks database. So /, let's do gallery again. We're going to design it a little bit differently, but it will be a gallery view. New database, and let's call it Deck Directory. I'm going to hide the title, rename gallery view to directory. Maybe delete the first two here. And inside of my directory, again, my default properties are created time and tags. Let's just delete tags, keep created time, and instead of page 3, let's call this Flexames and word forms. This can be a deck inside of morphology. Maybe we can create another one here for affixes, bases, and roots, which can also be in morphology. And the last one, maybe a deck inside of that anatomy class for directional anatomy terms. Great. So let's just design this real quick before connecting to classes. Inside of the database menu, maybe in layout and card preview, instead of cover or like we had before, let's do none. So it's just a nice sort of button. And the card size maybe small. And what I'm going to do is sort again maybe by created time. So now what I want to do is connect my DEX database to my classes. For example, affixes, bases, and roots is connected to that morphology class. So all I have to do is add a property here. And we're going to create a relation property. What relation properties do is connect one database entry to another database entry, either within its own database or another, in this case, another. Let's call it class, and type this time under advanced relation. Now we are going to connect this to class directory, which is right here. What I'm going to do now is show on class directory. So I'm just going to toggle that on. You'll notice down here in the preview window, it will update. So related property on class directory is going to be called DEX. Add relation and we're good. Let's click through class and choose the class. In this case, morphology. Now you notice if you do click, I'm back to my morphology page, which if I go up to the parent page is in class directory, which is in my classes page, which is in my page directory, which is in my easy flashcards page. And go to classes, I can see in morphology the DEX, affixes, bases, and roots, and the lexemes and word forms. So what we're going to do before creating those flashcards is we are going to make these class pages look a lot better and easier to navigate through DEX. So what I mean by that is inside of the classes page and each class, instead of having to navigate up to the top of the page and go through all my relations, I just want to see in neat buttons all of my DEX in the body of the page. So to do that, I will have to create a database template. So let's go to the parent page here, the class directory, and this is the main database. We could also, customize this via the classes page and the database menus. We're working with the same thing here. In fact, if I open this database inside of classes as full page, I'm back to the class directory database as a full page. So if I go to new here and the arrow pointing down, here's where I can create a database template. What is a database template? So if we create a new one, is whenever I create a new class, I can select this template and it will automatically generate whatever is inside of this template page. So let's open this up as a full page. You can create multiple templates inside of databases as well. And let's call this template new class. Inside the body of the page for every new class, I want a linked database to my DEX. So let's go / linked database, linked view database. And what I want to do is see all the DEX connected to this class. So I'm going to go to DEX directory. I should see my DEX here. And also, I could copy an existing view. We only have one called directory. And actually, I am going to click that, or you can add a new empty view. So we have our directory here of all of our DEX. But what I want to do is only see the ones connected to this class. For example, if I select a template for a class called biology, I only want to see the DEX related to biology that auto-populate in the body of the page. To do that, I'm going to create a filter via the filter button. Class, I'm going to make sure inside of my template that this database is connected to the title of my template, new class. You'll see that all the DEX disappeared for now, which is fine. what we're going to do is go back to class directory, the parent page, click on morphology, and now you'll notice in the body of the page an option to select your new template, new class. And we'll select it, and now you'll notice that the two decks here have populated. So what I'm going to do now is click on the relation at the top of the menu, because this is not where I want to navigate my decks now, and I'm going to hide property always. Now it looks a little neater. You can also hide that cover if you want. Now let's go back, go to anatomy, and do the same thing. Click the new class template. You'll see only that one deck is there for now. So what I can do is, instead of going to my decks database, I can go right to anatomy and just create new decks that automatically connect to this class via this new button. And you'll see that the class now is automatically connected to anatomy. Now, as for design of pages, I do want to show you one more thing. If you go to any page inside of a database and go to the page menu, the top right-hand corner, and go to Customize Page, there are a few options you can do here. So flashcards are probably for personal use for students. So you don't really need comments unless you are working with other students or team members. But if you go to top-level page discussions, you can actually turn it off. And that'll give you an even more minimal look. And because I did that with one page, now every page in this database will also have that top-level discussion comments disabled. All right, let's go back to the home page and continue. Like I said before, we're kind of nesting all of these databases into one another, decks into classes, and flashcards into decks. So what we can do with this connection actually is, if we go into decks here, is we can actually, inside of one database view, see the classes and the decks together. So I'm going to create a new view here, and I'm going to name it Grouped by Class. And let's have it be a gallery again, and in card preview, I can say none, card size small. That looks good. Hide that title again, and what I can do inside of this database menu is go to this option called Group. And what I can do is select Group by Class, which is that relation. And that will give us these toggles. I could hide empty groups here, so you don't see that no class toggle. And yes, these toggles are clickable, so I can click through to anatomy and go right to the anatomy page and all of its decks inside. What I can also do in a grouping like this is I can create a new class via my decks page. So all of these toggles are called groups. And at the bottom here, I can add a new group. And let's say I want to add a new group or a new class called biology. Now I can select new biology in class directory. And there I have my new biology page, and I can add new decks, cellular structure, automatically connected to class, and there's my new deck inside of biology. You might be wondering, is biology now inside of the class directory? And it is. So go to classes, you'll see that it has now populated in this new card, biology, and I can go ahead and add a cover image here and select new class. The template, and here we see in the body of the page neatly all of our decks will populate for biology. So we have classes and decks pretty much finished. Let's go into the flashcards. So let's create our last page here, call it flashcards, and select the cover image for flashcards. Great, now in the body of the page, we're going to create that flashcard directory. So / and this time let's make a table. Table view, and new database called flashcard directory. Hide the title. rename table to directory. And we're going to keep it as a table. So in the far upper right-hand corner, again, the page menu, what I want to do is actually convert this to a full width page. Let's actually delete this property and just start fresh. So the name of these pages is actually going to be the front of the card. So by clicking on name and going to rename, I'm going to rename this to front. And if I go and create a new property via this plus button, I can then create a text property called back. This will be the back of the flashcard. And what I can do is just put in some sample data, maybe, front example A, back example A, and so on. What I'm going to do is actually go to the original flashcard template and just copy some of this sample data. And if you're curious, you can copy and paste content from one table to another. So if I just highlight all of this here, which is what I want to copy, and go back, click on this first cell and then click away, make sure it's highlighted blue, and I can paste all of it in. So I'm going to have it be to about here. And now for every flashcard, I want to connect it to its corresponding deck. So we're going to create another property, and again, we're going to use that relation property. I'm going to call it deck, type, relation, and then choose the deck directory. Show on deck directory, toggle that on, and I'm going to name this flashcards. So again, down here in the preview, inside of flashcard directory, which we are in, we have a relation called deck. And inside of deck directory, we have a backlink relation now newly added called flashcards. Add relation. Now what I can do is connect these decks by clicking inside of the cell and clicking on the corresponding decks. Again, if I want to quickly copy and paste a deck down below, make sure that the cell is blue, copy, and then I'm just pressing the down arrow and pasting it in. So now we have our decks connected. Now what I can do is create the functionality where we can show and hide the back of the card. So another property I'm going to create is called show, and it's going to be a checkbox. Now if I click away and adjust the column all the way to the icon here, I can hide the title. I'm going to drag it over to the far left-hand side. So whenever this is clicked, I want the back to show. And in order to do that, I'm going to create another property called answer. And the type is going to now be a formula under advanced. So this is the first formula we're working with here. And what this formula is going to do, I'm just going to drag it over here where back is just show and hide that back card. So I don't really need to see my back card anymore. I'm going to click on the title and hide in view. And what you'll also notice if I click open, and you'll notice whenever you open up a new page, you'll see right up here, switch peak mode. You can do it from the side, the center, or a full page, and then just hide that to the side. And I do like that it is a side preview, especially since these are flashcards, so you can quickly look at the answer and maybe all of the notes you have in the body of the page if you have notes. And if you want to quickly adjust to that, you can actually go to the database menu and go to layout, and it should be the option down at the bottom, open pages in, and you can also select what type of peak you want to see. Okay, so as for this formula, let's click inside of the cell, and we're going to look at the properties here at the top in our formula pop-up window. We have a front, back, that deck relation property, and the show checkbox. So I'm going to use a simple if statement. I'm going to say if show, so I'm going to click on my property here, show. I could say equals true because it's a checkbox, or I can just keep it as is. So if prop show is true, then I want to show the back property. So I'm going to click back. Otherwise, or comma, just a blank space. And I'm going to close out this if statement with a closed parentheses, and we have our simple if statement. So if I click done, and I select the show checkbox, the back of the card will show. Now the next thing we had was the 3 checkboxes determining our understanding of that card: poor, okay, and great. So I'm going to add 3 checkboxes. The first one, poor, type, checkbox. I can quickly duplicate via the duplicate property. And this will give me a new checkbox. I'm going to name okay. And then do this one more time, duplicate, and great. Now when I click away, I can adjust these so that the title is not showing, and I'll just know that from left to right, left being poor to great being all the way to the right. Also, if you don't know which ones they are, you can just hover your cursor over it and eventually the name will pop up. Great, so now that we have our 3 checkboxes, let's add a date property called latest review. And this will be a date property. This will be the last time you reviewed this card. Type, date. And let's put some example dates. So what I'm able to do with this information now is actually create one more formula property called next review. So based off of our understanding, whether it's a poor, okay, or great understanding, I can push days from this latest review. So let's add that formula called next review, type, formula. And inside of here, I can essentially just say if poor, so I'm going to click on poor property. That implies that if poor is true or ticked true, then I'm going to use a function called date add, and it looks like this. What date add does is add to a date. So I'm going to say inside of this parentheses, latest review, that's what I'm going to add to, so comma, number of days, let's say if it's a poor understanding, 1, comma, and in quotes, days. So if poor, add 1 day, comma, let's do another one that says if okay, comma, date add to latest review, 2 days, and you can totally change this, comma, the last one, which is if property great, then date add to latest review, 3 days. And then if none of these are the case, I do need a false condition for an if statement. So if none of these are ticked, then just give me the latest review date. So comma, space, and then I'm just going to click latest review here. And then I'm going to close out all 3 if statements with 3 close parentheses, 1, 2, 3, and this is the final formula. And this is what it will look like. So of course, none of these are ticked, so they're just showing latest review, but if I were to tick them, you'll see that the next review formula does change. So one last property I want to add is a status property, and it's going to be called status, but it's not going to be a status property. It's actually going to be a select property. Right here, select. It could also be a status property, but I think select makes more sense here. And let's just add an option right through this window. And what select property does is give you a drop-down menu of different options. So let's say the first one is an active card. So one you are actively trying to study. And let's click through that menu next to active and change the color to green. I can add another option via this plus, and let's call this edit. So maybe this is a card we want to edit, and then archived. And we'll keep that gray. So our 3 statuses are here. I'm just going to adjust this column and bring this over. And let's say all of these are active. Just copy and paste it down. And then what I'm going to do is actually add a filter. So I want this view here to just be all of my active cards. And I'm going to change the name of directory to active. I'm going to have other database views here, and I'm going to say filter, where status is not archived. Now what I'm going to do is add another database view by clicking on Active and Duplicate. So I want to see pretty much the exact same setup. Duplicate, and I'm going to rename it to Archived, where I'm just seeing all of the archived flashcards. And I'm just going to click Filter, or I can click Filter up here and change the status is not archived to is archived, like that. Now another way I could view this is by the next review date. So I can add another view for maybe a calendar. And I can click Calendar here to see that. And Calendar by, right now it says latest review, that's our date property. I can choose next review because that formula is returning a date. So let's click that, done. Maybe in properties, I want to see the status. So that'll show in calendar. And I should see all of my next review cards in my calendar. Let's hide this title. And maybe rename calendar to next review. Click away. The next view I want to make is for today. So I want to collect everything and I kind of want it in the same view like this. So I'm actually going to click Active again and Duplicate and rename this view to Review Today. And in Filter, let's say Status Not Archived. But I'm going to add another filter called Next Review. The formula is, now I could just say, by clicking this down arrow, today. So filter will update with the current day, whatever day you're on. Of course, you can add different sorts as well, especially with the active cards. You can sort by deck, or by poor understanding or okay understanding. The last thing I can do is use that grouping feature again for the decks. So let's actually, from Review Today, duplicate again and say by decks. And in Filter, what I want to do is just get rid of that next review is today. Just going to delete that and go to Group again, that group option, and group by deck. And that'll give us all of the decks in these toggles and hide away all the flashcards within those toggles. I could hide empty groups as well to clean it up, and it will be sorted alphabetically. I could also sort it manually or reverse alphabetical. So now you'll see all of our decks are in these neat toggles with all of the flashcards underneath, and I could hide all of these away. The last thing we're going to do here is go back to the decks database. I'm just going to go back to the parent and go to decks. I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the classes database, where I want to create a database template. So going to our decks here, going to that new button and that down arrow again, I can create a new template inside of this database. And I'm going to call it New Deck. So New Deck. And all those flashcards are going to populate in the body. So we're going to do that instead of navigating to the top here, so I can actually hide flashcards by clicking on it and hiding always. And we're going to go / linked database view. We're going to link the flashcards database, linked view of database. And I'm going to select flashcard directory. I'm going to choose active. And I'm going to go to the top right-hand corner to the page menu, and I'm going to go to full width. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create another filter. So I'm going to click filter, and I can also add another filter here and say deck. And again, we're going to choose the template name, which should be at the top of the list, New Deck. So everything should disappear for now. What I'm also going to do is click on active and duplicate. I just want to quickly create an archived view so we can see all the archived flashcards for this deck as well. Go to filter and just make sure status is archived. That is the template. So let's just go to the parent page here, which is the deck directory. And now when I go to each deck, like before with the classes, in the body of the page, I have the option to select that template we just created, new deck. And now all of the flashcards connected to that deck will populate. And not only am I able to see all of these flashcards, I can also add new flashcards to these decks as well. And we now have our final template. Classes, which we can navigate through, and then we can navigate through inside each class, all of the decks, and then through all of the decks, we can add and review all of our flashcards. And then of course, we also have a page where we can navigate all decks, regardless of class, and all flashcards, regardless of deck. And that is the end of this little tutorial. Let's go right into the outro. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope that this gave you some clarity if you were looking to create something like this inside of Notion and maybe was having a hard time or was curious about how to go about maybe this upcoming school year in Notion. I would recommend using Notion. Of course, there are other apps, but if you have already decided on Notion, this could be a useful template for you. And of course, all relevant links down in the description below. I will see you guys for the rest of the week on Twitter and next time with a new video. I'll see you then.